Alright, so the first couple things I'd like to do on this tractor is I'd like to get the head off, or not the head, but I'd like to get the hood off, and I'd like to take the carburetor off. So I'm going to rebuild the carburetor and take the hood off so that I can take the valve cover off. Now, first thing I notice here is that there's everything on that protrudes through the hood is smaller than the opening for it. So this part of the hood should come right off with the exception of the muffler. And it looks to me like the muffler has to come off, but this pipe goes directly into the exhaust manifold. There's no bolts holding it on, it's just jammed in there. And it's up under here where I can't really get to it, and it's not budging. So I've put some blaster in it, and I'll do that for a couple hours or maybe a day or two and see if that'll loosen it up. But I suspect I'm going to end up mashing this pipe trying to get it off. I think the better option here is going to be to cut this so that I can get the hood off, so that I can then get down to where it's connected to the manifold and get it get a pipe wrench on it down there instead of up here. So that looks like the thing I'm going to have to do, and I don't like doing that because now I'm going to have to buy another muffler. This one's probably perfectly fine. It looks a lot like the Cub muffler. Looks to be the nearly exact same thing. So that may be what I have to do, but I'll try the blaster a little bit and see if that won't work. In the meantime, I'm going to take the carburetor off and see if we can get that on the workbench and get it cleaned up. I also need to find out what kind of carburetor it is. I know it's a Zenith because it says Zenith right on it. But what I don't know is what model number it is, so I'll have to take it off in order to get to that part. I can't easily see any numbers on it until I take it off. So I'm going to get my tools and take care of the gas line, and we'll take that off and see. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do with the carburetor here is loosen this fuel line right here. This, I believe, is supposed to be steel, but instead it's a rubber hose, and I suppose that's fine, but I'll look into that and see if we need to replace that at some point. It looks kind of new, so I think it's probably in pretty good shape. We'll see how hard it is to get off and how much of a mess we make. Alright, well, I think instead of that, I'm going to take this piece off right here. Although that's not going to turn. There's just not much leverage I can get on it. Maybe we'll take these bolts off first, pull the carburetor away, and then twist it off of that hose. That's probably what we should do. So let me get some tools and get right back. Alright, well, got my rag and I got a pair of pliers, and now maybe I should try to take it off here so I can catch any fuel that comes out of it. That maybe. Maybe that'll work. So let's see here. Oh my. That's actually kind of loose right here under the tank, which is kind of funny. And I've got that turned off already. And the pipe is long. Okay. So that's in a pretty good spot. Right there. That'll stay like that. Now, I'm not sure that carburetor will That's going to fall off just as sure as I'm sitting here. Let's see what we got. There we go. Alright, so there's the carburetor out. Now it's going to empty itself. So let's let it do whatever it's going to do here. Okay, so we'll move over to the workbench and take a little closer look at this. Okay, we got the carburetor out. I'm going to take off this little cotter pin here. Take this linkage off to get it out of the way. Grab the pliers. Okay. Now what I'm most interested here is finding any other numbers on here. This was the side of the carburetor that I could see from the tractor. And it says Zenith right there, but I couldn't read any other numbers. So I'm going to wipe this down and see if I can find any other numbers on the carburetor. Now this little round thing on here is supposed to be a label that tells everything. So let's see if we can read that. Well, it's going to be a chore to read. Right under here, stamped in, is G4. So capital G and a 4. And it says Zenith on the back side as well. I don't see any numbers on the back here. So we're going to have to read this label here. Let me clean this up and then see if I can read those numbers, and I'll get back here. Alright, so I examined this tag on the top of the carburetor, and again that was in the back against the engine, so it was hard to see. And there are two numbers on it. There's one number that's 105 and another number that's 212845. So when I look at my, I don't know if you can read this at all, but these are all the carburetors that were Zenith carburetors, and that's the one I have right there, 212845. So when I go order a repair kit, I got to make sure that it covers that number, Zenith carburetor. All right, so the next step then would be to get a kit for that carburetor and then get after it. We'll clean it, put new pieces in it that come with the kit, and get it all refurbished. And we'll probably want to take a good look at the gas tank while we have it off, and the fuel line, and make sure everything else is in good shape in the fuel system. It's all gravity, so there's no pump or anything. And I've looked in the tank and it looks pretty clean. It's a little rust colored, but it's not pitted or any of that, so it should be in good shape. Alright, so that's it for the carburetor. I'm going to go back and yank on this muffler a little bit, and if I break it loose, I'll turn the camera on. Alright, so I have the carburetor off here. I have the Zenith carburetor, and so what I'm finding here is these screws that hold the top of the carburetor to the bottom of the carburetor were all pretty loose. I didn't notice any leakage around the carburetor, which is good, but man, every screw on this tractor seems to be loose. Look at that thing, just fell apart. So what I'm going to do is go pull all these jets out of here and clean them up. Also, this is the choke, and somebody had put this little wire on there because the choke just falls. It's so loose that the thing, its natural spot is to stay choked all the time. And so they had this little clip to clip it up on the fuel line or something to keep the choke open instead of closed. So I got the good carburetor kit that has everything. So it has the new choke rod, and it's got a new rod here for the throttle as well. So I'm going to replace everything in here I can get to and clean this thing up. And it looks pretty good. It's Zenith, it says G4 on here, and then the top of it had the little tag on it riveted on with a number, and I've made sure that my carburetor kit's going to match that number. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these all these jets out of here and break this thing down, and we'll come back in a little bit. Well, things never go right with carburetors, and I took the throttle rod and butterfly valve off pretty easily off the top of the carburetor. That was no big deal, came right off. However, the screws for the choke butterfly, the little tiny screws on there are brass, and the slots were totally widened out, and it was obvious that this rod has not been replaced, and it's probably because they didn't want to mess it all up. So I used a oscillating tool with a hacksaw blade on the end of it to try to cut the screw heads off, and then I used a drill to hollow out the center of the screw, and then I used a chisel of all things in a vise to get the butterfly valve off altogether. So I now have that off. I'm not sure it's going to come out until I get the this rod off, but now look at this rod. This has been swaged on here, and there's a repair of some kind right here, soldering repair. And so I don't know how to, I mean, I guess I could cut the rod because I'm going to put a new rod in it once I get my rebuild kit. But I somehow either have to punch this out or you know, cut the rod off right there in order to get it out. And I still may have problems getting it out only because the screws are still partially in there, and so I think they'll clear okay, but I do have to get one of these two ends off of it. So that's the next stage, is to figure out how to get either this one or this one off so that I can get this rod out. So that's what I'm going to work on next. And again, I've never had to manhandle a carburetor quite like this, and I think I did it pretty well without damaging anything inside. And I'll pull that butterfly out. Hopefully I don't have to reuse the butterfly, but if I do, I'm pretty sure that I didn't mess up the holes or anything, so it should be okay. If I need to use it again, I'll clean it up. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the vise and see if I can get one of these ends off so I can slide the rod out the other direction. Well, I'm still working on this carburetor, and in order to get this rod out, you can see I had to cut off the heads of these screws that held the butterfly valve on. Let's see if that thing comes out. Yeah, there it is. So you can see I did a little bit of damage to it because I was cutting in this direction and it scored it pretty good. But it didn't wreck the hole, so if I had to use that again, I probably could. Then I couldn't get the rod out because it was swaged with brass on this end. And so I started filing it, and then remembered I had a bench grinder. So I ground the brass off of it and then punched it out, and these two pieces came apart. But then it got hung up inside, and I thought it was maybe these screws, so I filed those down. But it was, I think the head of this is a little fatter. Anyway, I got a couple of punches and was able to punch that out all the way. So the whole endeavor was to get this butterfly valve out, and I did that. And it took a cutting tool. It took a chisel, and it took several punches and the bench grinder to get this thing apart. And again, I hate manhandling really old equipment like this, but I believe I got it all done without wrecking anything. The only thing left in here is this jet right here, and it is threatening to strip out the slot. And so I've been spraying it with Blaster. I'm going to try that a few more times and be patient with it. And I think that's the last piece that I need to get out of here. Hopefully when my kit comes, it's got a new rod with a new butterfly valve on it as well. I think I could probably back these screws out, perhaps with a pair of pliers or something, but that would be a real challenge. So I could probably use this again if I had to, but I'm hoping not to. So that's where I am with the carburetor. I haven't started cleaning it up. I've just been trying to get all the parts out of it. So I'll get myself some carburetor spray. Actually, I have a dunk tank for this, so that's what I'm going to do next, is put it in the tank. So I'll get back to you when I make a little more progress on this carburetor and on the other items that I'm working on the Allis Chalmers 1940 Model B. Okay, I got my can of carburetor cleaner here. So what I'm going to do is see which parts. I'm going to just put all the parts in there in case I have to use them again. So I'm just going to stick everything I've got in here, and we'll dunk all of it. And I'm going to put the big pieces in as well. And give that a good soak. And I'll just leave those in, let's see, how long does it say? Fully submerge parts and allow to soak for 10 to 15 minutes. Do not seal container with metallic parts inside. Remove them and rinse with warm water. To remove extremely heavy carbon, allow to soak overnight, rinse with water, and clean with wire brush. Do not soak aluminum, aluminum alloy, zinc, pot metal, etc. parts over 4 hours. So I'm going to leave the lid off of this, and I'm going to go about half an hour, and we'll come back to those. And I got some wire brushes. We'll get a clean surface here and some warm water, and we'll get on with cleaning up this carburetor in anticipation of getting our rebuild kit. Alright, so I've hooked the carburetor up, and as I was just explaining, the throttle wand here that sticks off the rod is the rod doesn't fit, and so the rod from the governor, the whole throttle mechanism doesn't fit, which is just one more thing on this carburetor rebuild that's wonky and not quite right. So that's a shame. I'm gonna have to drill that out, but I'll do that later. I think I can operate this just the way it is. So the next step will be to guess I got to put the oil pan on and fill this thing up with oil, and I got a new gasket for up here as well. So I'll put that gasket on, bolt this down, and then we'll try to start it and see how it runs. And again, I need to warm it up and then take the valve cover off and re-gap the valves, readjust the valves. You're supposed to do that hot, not cold. So I'll get that done, and then we'll move on. I still have the final drives exposed and the oil pans off of those. I got another shipment coming, but it won't be here till next week. I didn't realize I was going to need to do those until I found water in them and just sludge in the other one. So I'm going to need to wait till next week to get those done. Then we can drive the thing around and just see how it works, if there's any improvements. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is open the gas valve. Oh, it's already open. It's been open all this time. I'll be darned. I've had kind of a leaky carburetor, so I'm surprised that I left it like that. But it doesn't look like it's dripped all that much. So that's probably good, just like that. All right, so I think the next step here is just to crank the thing. So let me get myself a little room. There we go. So whenever you crank these tractors, you always want to make sure you're in neutral, and you check that every single time, because people, kids can mess with it and so forth. You just want to be sure. All right, so we're going to choke this. well, it looks like our magneto work was successful, but the tractor still runs awfully rough. And so that brings me back to the carburetor. And I've had the dang carburetor off several times and it just continues to run rough. So I've changed all the jets and cleaned it out. I guess I can clean it out again. So maybe that's what needs to happen next. So magneto a success. Back to the carburetor to see why it runs rough.